I stepped onto the mansion's smooth stone driveway just outside Seattle, my sneakers clicking against the pavement. Even from outside, I could hear the bustle of the celebration, laughter, the clink of glasses, the hum of a jazz trio playing in the corner. It was my father-in-law's birthday, and the house was decorated like something out of a magazine. Caterers moved fluidly through the crowd, balancing plates of delicate hors d'oeuvres. A champagne tower gleamed on its chandelier's glow. Adjusting the tie Juliana had picked out for me that morning, I tried to ignore the gnawing sense of not belonging. She was already inside, dazzling as always at these events, her laughter rising above the murmur of conversation. Across the room, I spotted her surrounded by her family, her mother Claudette fussing over her hair, her brothers Ree and Marshall orbiting her like she was the center of their universe. She looked like a queen on her throne, radiant, confident. I stood there for a moment just watching her shine. When I finally made my way over, she barely glanced at me. "Hey!" I murmured, leaning in to kiss her cheek, but she turned her head at the last second, distracted by something her cousin was saying. I lingered, hands in my pockets, waiting for her to notice me. She didn't. Clearing my throat, I asked, "So where am I sitting?" trying to sound casual. She didn't answer. Instead, her cousin handed me a tiny card. Table 23. I frowned, flipping it over, convinced there had to be a mistake. But there wasn't. No name, just a number. Glancing around the room, I started counting the tables. The main ones were inside, by the windows near the music, packed with her family and their posh friends. Table 23 wasn't even in sight. I wandered outside, past the terrace where guests sipped drinks and laughed, until I found it. Tucked between the coat racks, half hidden under a row of winter jackets nobody needed in this weather, sat a single shaky table with one chair. I sank into it, and the chair groaned beneath me. Out here, the air was brisk. I could barely hear the jazz over the clatter of caterers clearing plates. Through the enormous glass doors, I looked back toward the house. Juliana was still at the center of it all, laughter lighting up her face. Our eyes met just for a second, and I thought maybe she waved me over, tell me this was a mix-up. Instead, she smirked, shrugged, and said loud enough for me to hear, "Guess you don't count." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I stared at the empty table, my fists clenching around that foolish little card. It wasn't just a seat. I'd sat through worse at her family's functions, smiling like an idiot while they ignored me. But this was different. This burned. I'd driven an hour to be here, brought a gift for her dad, worn the tie she liked, and she couldn't even pretend I mattered. I looked at her again, laughing with Ree, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Something inside me twisted. 7 years of marriage, and I was still the one they stuck by the coats, the guy who didn't count. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was overreacting. Big parties were chaotic. Someone always had the bad seat, right? But the longer I sat there, the colder it felt, inside and out. Even the caterers didn't bother coming this far. If I wanted a drink, I'd have to flag someone down. I thought about going back inside, grabbing a glass of champagne, pretending everything was fine. I'd done it before, smile, nod, play along. But tonight, that felt impossible. Her words echoed in my head. Guess you don't count. Each time they replayed, they cut deeper. I wasn't just some guest who got a lousy seat. I was her husband. Didn't that mean anything? I stood, the chair scraping loudly against the stone. No one even looked. Inside, the celebration rolled on, glasses clinking, voices rising, Juliana's laughter soaring above it all. I took one last look at her through the glass. She was still smiling, still shining, still not looking for me. That was it. That was enough. I turned and walked away, the cold night air hitting my face, her words still seared through me, scorching something raw and irreparable. I had always been the one who showed up, no questions asked, the one who smoothed things over, who preserved the peace even when it cost me something. As I drove away, the headlights cutting to the dark Seattle suburbs, the jazz faded into the distance. My grip on the steering wheel tightened, my mind replaying the scene over and over. It wasn't just a terrible seat, it was a slap in the face, and I had accepted it, just like I always did. 7 years of marriage, and I had spent most of it bending over backward for her family. Claudette had never liked me, called me that mechanic once, even though I hadn't touched a wrench in years. Rhea and Marshall treated me like some tag-along they had to tolerate, cracking jokes about my old car or my work like I wasn't standing right there. Still, I had kept showing up every holiday, every cookout, every awkward Sunday brunch. I was there, smiling, nodding, playing the good son-in-law, bringing bottles of wine I couldn't afford, fixing their garage doors while they sipped coffee, and laughed about stories that always seemed to make me feel small. Because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You take it. You prove yourself. I told myself that if I stuck it out long enough, they'd see me, really see me, and I'd finally belong. Juliana always told me I worried too much, that her family was just like that, and I believed her because I wanted to believe her. So I swallowed the small insults, the sidelong stares, the way they talked over me like I wasn't even in the room. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was doing it for her, for us. But last night, sitting out there by the coach while she laughed and sighed, something snapped. I wasn't swallowing it anymore. I was choking on it. The road stretched ahead, quiet but for the hum of the engine, and all I could think about were the times I had let it slide. Christmas 2 years ago when Claudette didn't set a spot for me at the table, so I ate standing in the kitchen. The 4th of July barbecue when Ree handed me a broom to sweep up after the kids, smiling like he was doing me a favor. Marshall sending me to the store for ice during brunch because you're not doing anything anyway. And Juliana, she'd just watch. Maybe offer me a small smile, like that was enough to make it okay. But last night I realized something. I wasn't just being ignored. I was being dismissed. And I was done. I wasn't going back. Not to that party. Not to that life. Not to the man I had let myself become. Last night I walked out. And I was going to keep walking.